G'day fellow cross trainers. Today we're going to run through how to fit a kickstarter to a cross trainer. So first we'll start with the kickstart kit itself. This is a genuine beta kickstart kit. Comprises of the kickstarter itself, the seal that goes into the case, the bolt that actually holds the kickstarter in. This is an extra part which I bought. This is the clutch nut retaining washer, because you need to actually take the whole clutch basket out. And when these tabs here hold the clutch nut on, and when I undid the last ones, they broke off. So I got a spare one of them. It doesn't come with the Kickstarter kit, so you need to order that separately. With the rest of the kit, there's a little, what they call a ramp here that goes inside. Idler gear, we'll see where that goes. These washers fit on either side of the idler gear. The circlip holds the idler gear on. This is the main kickstart mechanism itself. It comes pre-assembled with the spring and the ratchet mechanism and everything in there. The thing to take note of here, you need to make sure that that dot there and that dot here line up before you put it in. If it doesn't line up, the spring won't line up properly and your kickstarter won't return properly when you kick the bike. So, but it already comes pre-assembled like that with everything lined up, but just check it when you get it. So there we go. Here's the bike. I have already drained the oil and the coolant out of this to save a bit of time. So I'm going to use my rattle gun here, which is a cardinal sin according to some people, but I reckon they're all right. And we'll just take the water pump off to start with. I leave the bolts in. We'll get a bit of coolant all over everything. Thought I'd drained it properly. There we go, a rag to soak that up. Now I just tuck this out of the way. Basically put the bolts back where they were. You can flip it around, and here's my nice little bit of wire which I've already got ready for it. Just hold that there. Next you take the power valve cover off. In there you can see the power valve actuator mechanism. It needs to be taken off, the mechanism itself does. So there's a little clip that sits on here which holds the holds the arm on there, and you pull that out the bottom. Don't lose that. Pop the arm off here, pops off like that. Take the gasket out. So now we're ready to actually take the whole clutch inner cover off. I just leave this cover on because there's nothing really to be achieved by taking it off. So we'll whip around and undo all the bolts that hold that inner case on. That's another thing, I've loosened off the brake pedal, taken the bolt out, the mounting bolt out of the brake pedal there, but I didn't go as far as actually taking it off because you can do what you need to do without removing it completely. Just get it out of the way. I think that's all of those bolts that need to be undone. Another one in here somewhere, have we? Sometimes this needs a little bit of a crack to get it off. Bolts going everywhere. I did drain the oil, but there's some more coming out there. So this, on the water pump, it's a little bit, you need to sort of work it out a little bit. This little shaft goes into the motor there and be a little bit stiff. That whole case will come out. trying to leave some of the bolts in there. So that's got the water pump and everything in there. On the back of that you can actually see the power valve actuator mechanism. So as the revs increase, that slides out, which turns that lever, which pushes on that, and you can see that actually actuates the power valve. When you adjust your power valve adjuster on the outside here, it's actually putting preload on this spring here, which you can see how that affects the power valve mechanism there, purely by centrifugal. So next we need to take the actual clutch right out. So we take the springs out. If you happen to have washers on your clutch springs like we do, make sure that they come out with it. In this instance they have. Sometimes they can sit on the actual perch and sort of stick on the aluminium here, and you have to pull them off, like that one has. So just pop that off. This is my wife's clutch, and it's got two washers on it. You can see one there and one there. I only have one on mine. Two in there. Okay, got a lot of clutch washers in there. Next bit, well, try not to actually pull the entire clutch pack out. You can just take that off the top. Take the clutch actuator rod out. That goes through to the master cylinder on the other side there. Those clutch plates that have actually fallen out, we'll take out. So the next thing we need to do is actually remove the clutch itself. Remove the inner basket of the clutch. So to do that, we need to actually bend the tabs off on that nut retainer. And that's what I was showing you earlier, which is the new spare one we have there. And just to bend those tabs off, we just get in there nice and gently. See if you can bend it back gently without actually breaking them. I didn't have any luck on my bike, they broke. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is actually take that clutch basket off. I'm going to use a rattle gun here. Some people don't like using rattle guns on this sort of stuff. Other people think it's okay. What you can do to actually stop the clutch from spinning is you just put a little bit of pressure on the plates like that, and actually clamps the plates together, and it stops the clutch pack from spinning. That nut's got a pretty heavy amount of Loctite on it, and it's important that that retains that Loctite on it. So then the whole clutch basket slides off. And try not to drop the bearings in the dirt. So with the whole clutch basket off, we can see that the kickstart mechanism, there's an idler wheel here. It goes on to that shaft, which is just one of the gearbox shafts there, which is left exposed. And when you put this stuff in, you need to make sure that you've got a coating of oil on it all. So I've got my oil can here. Make sure that's got plenty of oil on it in that little bush there. In there. So there's one of these thin washers goes on the back. Then the idler gear itself goes on. Then the washer itself. My kids playing in the background here, making noise. Then we've got a circlip that goes on there. Let's pop that on. There we go. The idler gear spins nicely. That actually connects directly to the back of the clutch basket and spins the whole time. So does the other idler gear that you'll see go on in a minute. So in actual fact, when you put the kickstarter in, you're adding a little bit of flywheel weight. Effectively, anyway. Next thing we need to do actually is put the ramp on. So this is a little ramp that pulls the mechanism off. When the kickstarter comes back up to the top, it pulls the mechanism off so it's not permanently engaged when the motor's actually running. So this ramp actually runs that way. We'll do one bolt at a time here. Here's my big tiller. It's a better one. Now you want to tension that up to about 10 Newton meters, and that's 10 Newton meters I can do by feel. So the next bit is the actual Kickstarter mechanism itself goes in, and we want to make sure there's plenty of oil on this as well. Absolutely everywhere, especially in these bits that move and slide against each other. That spins, so make sure there's plenty of oil in there. Check once again that those dots are lined up. They are. Now this ramp here, you need to make sure that it sits on the upside of that ramp, so that when the Kickstarter comes back up, that ramp there grabs this and disengages it. So that sits in about there. Just check to see where that ramp is. Yeah, that's about right. Right, that locks into the idler gear there, so those two gears should mesh. Now this spring, you bring all the way around, and there's a little hole up in the case, up in here, that this spring goes into. It slides right in there like that. So if you're not sure whether things are actually working correctly, what I tend to do is at this point, grab your Kickstarter, slide it on the shaft, make sure it actually engages. Okay, we can see that. We can see the ramp. I don't know whether you can see down in there. That little ramp comes in there and grabs the other one, pulls it off. So it looks like it's going to work. So from there, we actually, just a double check, that's on correct, that's on correct, spring's in right, everything's okay in there. Got my clean rag here, clean those bearings off that hit the ground. Again. So that sleeve actually sits on the shaft there. Make sure everything's got plenty of oil. It looks nice and clean. Oiled up. Now we're at the stage where we slide the clutch back on. Now this clutch has got to actually engage with that spline. The centre hub's got to engage with the spline there, and then the outer teeth on here have got to engage with the primary drive gear here, and that inner tooth there has actually got to engage with our newly installed Kickstarter idler gear. So you sort of got to jiggle it around and make everything work. Get that on in there. Alright, looks like our idler gear is engaged. Primary drive gear. And there it goes. Just pop back on there. Alright, so we might put some of our clutch plates back in. Get it clean. I'll just lean the bike over the other way actually, because it's leaning towards us. There we go. And we'll stop our clutch plates from sliding out. Okay, clutch plates back in. Next thing we want to do is put that nut back on. Have a look at this. It's actually not bad. That's come off pretty well. I don't think we really need to replace that one. No, that's fine. We can reuse that. Make sure there's plenty of Loctite on this nut. I've never seen one come loose, but they always have heaps of Loctite on them from the factory and stuff, so it's obviously an issue. Put our retainer back in, which I just had. find the face that was rubbing before, that one, put it back on the same way. Once again, rattle gun it. You've got to be careful with the rattle gun. You just do it up until it actually touches. And then, just very carefully, just watch how it does up. And you can tell when it gets to the spot where it doesn't really want to move anymore. And that's about where you want to be. So, got some multi-grips here to bend those tabs back over with. Hoping that they bend over without breaking. Yep, it feels good. You can feel if they're going to break, it just lets go. No, that's nice. Alright, that's gone on fine. Next is, what is that? Oh, just reflection. Might just wipe some of that excess Loctite off. Our clutch actuation rod again. Make sure that's clean. It is. Clutch basket. I like to start these by hand.
Washers on it?
Yeah, washers are on it. 2 on each. Alright, start it by hand. These again are 10 or 12 Newton meters. That's pretty good actually. That's about right. 3 clicks with a rattle gun. Okay, quick check. Everything's in place. Right, once again, when we get to this stage, I'll check to see that everything's engaging properly. It is. You can feel that first bit. It's engaging, turning everything. It's returning. Okay, I think we're pretty much right there. The other thing we need to do with this case here is take the plug out. So there's a little alloy plug in here. We just got a circlip on it. Off with the circlip. Out it goes. There's a seal that goes in there. Bit of oil in there. Make sure that's all nice and oiled in there. Bung the seal in. Of course, if you're doing this yourself, you're going to take a lot more time to clean everything up and make it all lovely. And in the interest of the video, I'm ripping through it pretty quick. Everything looks like it's in place there. It does. The gasket sitting where it should. It is. I'll just manoeuvre this in now. Sometimes the first time you put this shaft on, it can be a bit stiff in there. Now, just like we're trying to line up some cogs before when we're putting it back together, same thing here. You've got to line up the water pump cog in there. Oh, I think that's just popped in. It's a bit of a fluke. This will be a little bit hard to get in because that spring that sits out will be pushing out, so you really need to pop that in like that. All right, that's sitting on pretty much like it should. We've got that there. Just a little bit of tension on that one. And these ones where we've got, I just want to brace the case around where we're working, where it's going to take the force of the Kickstarter. Just have a little bit of force on that. Lots of double checking along the way. Slide it on. Yep, we're engaging. Beautiful. It's doing what it should. Now I need to find the bolts. It came out. And I guess that's, you don't really need to go much further, because really all we're talking about now is you've got to re-engage the power valve. Oh, there's a trick for you. Make sure that you actually put this gasket, slide that over there before you pop the power valve actuator back on. Otherwise you'll have to take it off again. Find my little pin there. Don't drop this down into the cases, otherwise you have to take it off again. Okay, that's on. So from now, it's just a matter of reassembling everything. It's just a matter of putting the water pump back on, the power valve cover, brake pedal, slide the kickstarter on itself, and give it a kick. So you can. So that's probably about enough as far as the video is concerned. Just remember, when you put this kickstarter on, which we can do, just line it up so it sits, I think that's about right, yeah, about there is about, you don't want it to sit too much further forward than that, otherwise it'll hit the pipe when the pipe comes through there. So you want it just past being, look, one tooth past being parallel with the frame, I think is about where it sits. This has got some really coarse Loctite on it. It is there for a reason, that these bolts always come loose. So if for some reason you happen to take your kickstarter off, make sure you put heaps of Loctite on this when you put it back on. The Loctite that comes from the factory is really good. It's sort of gummy. And get onto that. It's a nice thick bolt and a good shaft, so you can get a bit of tension onto it. And there you have it. You get a kickstarter on your cross trainer. And then she's ready to go. And that way, if your battery goes flat, you'll be able to keep the bike and keep going.